Hence, we can just probably wait a little. Okay, they'll keep joining. Okay.
They're joining, ma'am.
All right. Please keep adding that. Are we going ahead with the video as well, Mithali?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so straight this time. Don't we have any? Ask Nadine if we have one. Just give me a heads up.
Yes, ma'am. I think we can start with.
Okay. A very good afternoon to one and all. I'm delighted to welcome you once again to a new episode of Futuristic Education, a web series dedicated to education, an EduDays initiative in association with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham to enlighten and empower the education community in the education trends in the future. These are a city-based web series where we call and invite the edu leaders who then voice their views and opinions on one or the other pertinent issues of 21st century education. This time, the city happens to be Gurgaon, which is my own city. And the topic is assessment re-examined. I am Devyani Kapoor, and I would be your host and moderator for the day. And without further ado, let me introduce you to today's panel, which is a very, very esteemed panel. We have with us Ms. Charu Mani, Principal, DAV Public School, Sector 49, Gurgaon. She is also the Vice Chairperson of GPSC. We also welcome you, ma'am. We have with us Ms. Sarika Singh, Headmistress, DPS Dwarka Expressway, Sector 102 and 103, Gurugram. Welcome you, Ms. Sarika. And we have with us from Amrita, Dr. Bala Murugan S., Chairperson and Professor, Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University. We welcome you all to this episode of Assessment Re-Examined. Namaskar, everyone. You see, let us examine today the pivotal role of assessment within the education system as a key driver of change and see how policymakers and education leaders can work towards creating a better education in the post-COVID scenario. Now, during the COVID, or if I say last 2 years, saw two major phenomena taking place, which greatly impacted the education. One, education of India, and the other, education of the world by and large. One was the COVID. The other was the launch of the National Education Policy 2020. But with it also came certain revelations. The ability of educational system to respond to urgent renewal has been severely affected by 4 fundamental disruptions. I was reading an article and I'm very tempted to share my views before I take yours. Now, what were these 4 fundamental disruptions? First was, in many contexts, there has been a collapse of the classroom spaces and school walls, with teachers and learners moving swiftly to technological environments and e-spaces. And In some cases, where we see back to restricted classroom context, but things will not remain the same. Not all have had the access to learning devices. The disruption exposed educational disadvantages that remained largely hidden. The second was the abrupt move to online learning forced educational institutions and systems to radically change their instructional practices. We saw hybrid, virtual, and many other combinations of pedagogical deliveries coming up. In that way, there was rethinking of core curricular and also of the assessment patterns. The third, very quickly, the pandemic further highlighted equity challenges embedded in the system, bringing forward a fundamental imperative to care for students, not in times of challenge, by focusing on their well-being. Mental health became important. Opportunities, throwing them with more informed opportunities became important. And so when we are moving, now we are in an era where national education policy really brought in Herculean changes. And with this, we also saw that the greatest obstacle within the education system, that was to bring up learners and versatile learners, was the only testing parameters was one window examination itself. That requires, perpetuating controlled conditions. With online, there were newer problems. Last few months, we saw how our assessment pattern, testing pattern was disrupted, with term one results coming so late, with people who are not satisfied with their marks. And so many things were more, I would not say they were mistakes, they were learning experiences. So my question to our esteemed panelists is that the disruptions to a large scale examinations raised questions about sustainability of this approach. What is your view on it? And I would first like Ms. Charumeni to address this issue, as it's not about her schools, because what she says would actually matter a lot of schools that she is also in on her honorary position heading. Yes, Ms. Mani.
Thank you so much, Ms. Devyani, for having me on this panel. And yes, the topic that you have chosen is actually a topic which is of concern to all of us, and especially with NEP coming, it has exposed that how till now we were not using the proper way of assessment. Most of the time, schools were using assessment of learning. Okay, and with this disruptive practices, especially this Corona time, has actually brought the digital world closer to all of us. The ICT, we were studying about that ICT in education should be there. In NEP, NCF 2005, there was so much of mention that ICT has to be there in the education practices, but it was not coming. Though there were many seminars and workshops which were being held with schools, but still it was not. But with Corona, this was the way to go. And the disruptive practices that it brought, especially in assessment, it was a sea change. The NEP talks about 360-degree assessment. And with the digital platforms, we can actually bring about these. And your question that whether it is here to stay, I would say yes, it is here to stay, because now the teachers and the students have tasted the benefits of the digital world, that how it can be used for individualized learning pattern. Now the child can learn on his own. The flipped learning techniques can be brought in. Earlier also we were using them before Corona, but not to the extent that we are using now, because the teachers are also more used to. using the flip learning. Parents now know what is flip learning, that they can give the videos and the various modules to the students, and then just a discussion pattern at school. So it is bringing the whole 360-degree assessment to the forefront. That's my submission.
Great. Very well said. And I'm sure that, Corona had put all of us on a roller coaster. We were all contemplating about ICT integration, but there was a hitch, but it just forced all of us to, adopt and adapt to the technology. Thank you so much, Ms. Benny. Moving on to Ms. Sarika. Yes, Ms. Sarika, what would you like to, what is your take and what has been your experience to this? That is more important. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Devyani ma'am, for having me in and giving me this opportunity to, to address such gathering. And see, if we really want to bring about a change in our assessment system, we have to go a little deep into it. Right. So if the reason behind why we always say that NEP 2020, it always talks about a shift from rote learning, from memorization to more conceptual understanding, to develop certain problem solving skills, to various things which are to make our children acquire 21st century skills. So NEP talks about all this. It is there in NEP. But we have to understand that, why our students, they are still following that rote memorization techniques. Why they are till the time where technology is there everywhere, and there are so many things that they can explore on their own. Still, when it comes to examination, when it comes to assessment, we always move from these practical approaches to that traditional, year-end assessment thing. So we have to first of all understand the reason behind this. Why our students are so, I should say, forced, or the teachers also, they also have this kind of thing that, it is ultimately marks or the report card that actually matters. So we have to go a little deep into it. We have to understand the reason behind it. So in my opinion, traditionally, जो हम assessment लेते थे, that has focused majorly on the year-end examination. And this presents a very rigid and narrow idea of assessment. It only emphasizes on quantitative achievements in terms of marks. And it further, adds on, or it is a deciding factor for future employment. And this creates a lot of pressure among students, and they always work for getting good marks, and for getting good marks, they have to go through rote memorization. So instead of understanding, analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity, the students, they enter into this vicious cycle to increase pressure, that further increase the pressure on getting some extra support. And yes, then studying a subject in school, they after in the evening they go for extra classes for coaching, because ultimately they have to cram everything. But now in NEP is talking about that 360-degree holistic progress report card. And to be able to generate such kind of report card in year-end examination or final examination is not going to give you that kind of. So when CBSE and NEP and all the organizations which are working in this direction, when they're talking about a 360-degree report card, then eventually we are going to shift to informal or formative kind of assessment. When I say informal, it is going to be more applicable for the primary wing children, where there should not be very rigid or, a systematic, that kind of pattern where everything is done in a different way. So there in primary classes, it should be continuously in some kind of informal assessment that should happen, where children, without getting this under the pressure, without parents getting under this pressure that, oh, tomorrow my child has to write an examination, it will automatically shift them towards that direction. And once the schools and the teachers and parents, of course, parents are also very important, has a very important role to play. So once they will understand that evaluation is not something which is going to be at the end of the session or towards the end of each term, it is going to be there in the system. It is there, the child, whatever child is doing in class, he or she is being observed, and anything good is going to add his grades, or is going to give him a lot of year-end assessment ko improve karne wala hai. So this 360-degree holistic report card that CBSE or the NEP is talking about, it is a revolutionary tool, and it has the potential to bring about this paradigm shift in the very nature of pedagogy.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you so much. And I think very rightly said that there has been a paradigm shift which national education policy is proposing. But the underlying question is, are we actually following that? Because the teacher's mindset still remains that, and even the students or the parents, that at the end of the day, the marks will be the deciding factor for your entry into a college or an organization, college or an institution of your choice. In fact, last week we were having a webinar on CUET. Let's talk about CUET because it's very important for all of us to understand that. And we will go deeper down into this, that how should the mindset per se assessment change, not just by policies, but also by how we actually practice it in our classrooms and in schools. Are we actually incorporating the various parameters on which NEP talks about generating a holistic report card? Let us hear out what Mr. Bala Murugan has to say, because he will bring in the technological perspective to it, that how will technology be an instrumental in creating a hybrid model of assessment as well. Yes, Bala Murugan ji.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This assessment re-examined, right? Before going for the re-examine part, if you just look into the conventional way of assessment, right? The major problem what you can see in the conventional examination is the evaluation mostly is concentrated towards the end. That is one of the problem. And another thing is the assessment tool or whatever we do, it is testing the cognitive domain of the student, maybe at the level of remembrance or at the level of understanding. So when you look into the Bloom taxonomy level, our conventional examination, it is concentrating at one level and concentrating at one portion. And another thing is it is taking the students only to go up to the understanding level maximum. But when you re-examine this assessment process, two things has to be done. This assessment should be a continuous process. It should not be the end of a semester process or the end of the year process. It should be day by day. There should be a learning and assessment, and that should be accumulated to decide the grade or something. And apart from the, even if you look into the cognitive part, the teaching or the learning part should not stop at the conceptual understanding. The student should be in a position to go for the next level, something like they should know how to apply and they should know how to create something out of it, and they should know if any problem comes out, they can use that to solve those problems. So, so it has to take to that level. And another thing is our teaching learning process, assessment process should not be just for the cognitive. It should also test their attitude level and also the skill set. That is, I'm telling about the psychomotor skill. So psychomotor skills should also be evaluated, and the interpersonal attitude level should also be evaluated, and it should be a continuous process. So if you are looking into these important factors, looking into these factors, we have to re-examine things, and we have to find out new assessment tool, which will be a 360-degree assessment process as per the NEP.
Well, thank you so much. Very well said. Two points you said, that assessment should be a continuous process, and we should not just look at the cognitive aspect, but also the other aspects. This, before I move on to the other question, I would come back to Ms. Sarika and Ms. Charumani and talk about exactly this, that I'm sure a few days back, you were handing over the report cards to the students, and you saw a very, very truncated kind of an assessment and examination procedure where every day we were having new notifications, new mandates, every day new policies were coming in. My question is, normally what I remember was that principals used to be very busy, juggling with that percentage that, okay, we can give the grace of 7% or 5% for the promotion of the child. How did this, actually, I really want to peep into this. How did this transition of this academic year happen in terms of assessment? And what was the new thing you did per se the NEP. Yes, Ms. Charunani, first your experience and what were those three things you devised during this, and then to Ms. Sarika.
Very rightly said, Devyani ma'am, that prior to COVID, very rightly picked, we used to be juggling. Okay, how much grace? 40% we keep for promotion, but government says 33%. So okay, we can give a grace marks of this. That was used to be there for promotion from class 9 to 10 and 11 to 12. And there used to be too much of hue and cry about this. But these 2 years of Corona have really changed our perspective. And I would say I have also grown as a team leader, as a principal, because now I see that fail karke koi fayda nahi hai, because it is that is only the last thing that we are doing. At the primary level, we are concentrating on their literacy and numeracy. Now in 9th and 11th, I have not failed anyone. We have just seen what are the learning gaps. One, check out for the learning gaps, and we have devised certain assessment sheets which we called as ABC. We have just coined a term ABC at our school, which is assessment of background concepts. So if a child is moving from class 9 to 10, so just the assessment of the background concept, that whether the child has got that minimal, itna to jane. So that minimal level of learning has the child achieved or not. If not, then what all has to be given to the child so that they are able to grab the concepts that are there in grade 10 or grade 12 for that sake. So for the past 2 years, we have not failed anyone, and I'm actually liking it, because there is no one crying going out of my room now. And the parents know that yes, the child was not doing well, and the school is there with them to brush up and the concepts and to give the that scaffolding that the child needs. Another thing that I have started, which has come as a learning for me, in fact before Corona only it started, that if I concentrate on my primary and the middle level, then all these things will go automatically, because 8th tak to waise we could not fail anyone because government orders. Okay, so if I concentrate on my primary and my middle, all these things will things will be taken care of themselves. And for that, what was my understanding, because I was also involved in one of a project with NCERT, where we were checking that how students learn and why they are not able to grasp a concept. So we that was a learning for me, that most of the time it is not the concept, it is the matter of language. They're not able to comprehend what is being taught to them.
Very true.
Okay, like when we are teaching in an English medium school and staying in Gurgaon, we have students coming from all families. There are families which are first generation learners also, and there are families who do not speak English at all. And NEP has very beautifully said that we have to teach the child in the language that he understands till primary years. So that is also to be taken care of. But being an English medium school, I have to see to it the child becomes comfortable in comprehending what they are learning. So what another thing that I have done at lower levels is that we start with giving them age appropriate storybooks, which the parent and the child read together in the lower classes. So that first comprehension will come, the rest of the things will be taken care of themselves, depending upon the cognitive development of the child. And obviously everyone is not meant to read mathematics or other thing, but still most of the cases would be solved just by looking at the comprehension and taking care of the foundation literacy and numeracy. That's what I'm concentrating on.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I think that is, thank you so much. And I want all the listeners to actually focus, most of them would be coordinators or heads of schools, or to focus on the three things which NEP has been talking about. And if your numeracy, literacy, and your language part is sorted, it's not the cognitive problem. It's the basic understanding. जब बच्चा समझ ही नहीं पा रहा है वो concept, तो comprehension becomes very, very important, and very well, beautiful initiative, which is something that, you know, introducing reading clubs and reading at a younger age. Thank you so much, Ms. Charu. Yes, Sarika, what did you do in your school? I'm sure with newer, you know, you're coming up with as a new principal, you would have actually wanted to introduce new innovations and reforms. So what was those that you worked upon and introduced?
Yes, Devyani ma'am. So a lot of things Charu ma'am has already, you know, discussed, because this year as well as the previous year, last year also, the assessments were primarily, they were conducted in the online mode. So keeping that format in mind, we did not give a lot of, you know, weightage to the term end assessments. Rather, we gave equal weightage to the regular and continuous assessments that were carried out by subject teachers and, you know, everyone in the school. And the subject enrichment activities, the SE activities, the projects, the presentations that the students were given, not only during the classes, but as their holiday homework projects, the winter vacation holiday homework, the summer vacation holiday homework, and a lot of, you know, multiple assessments. We planned and executed a lot of assessments. Sometimes it was some, you know, these assessments were announced and these assessments were, you know, children were informed well in advance. And sometimes these assessments were conducted in such a way that even the teachers, the children were not aware of that this is something which is going to be evaluated. They were very spontaneous, they were very natural while attempting such like, you know, assessments, by appearing for it. So all of it added to a greater value to the final term result, because it was not only one particular examination that was going to decide their years, the entire year's journey, the entire year's educational journey. So this was one thing that we gave more importance this time to the internal assessments and the various components of internal assessment. Secondly, as rightly said by Charu ma'am, that, you know, it is very easy to say that you failed this subject or you could not do this subject, so you know, we are giving you the grace marks, or you have to repeat this subject, and so many such like things. Rather, it is the time that we have to hold the hands of these children, because, you know, it is very, very difficult for a student for staying at who are stuck up at their home for 2 years, for them sitting in front of a device on everyday basis for 4 to 5 hours. I mean, it is not easy, believe me. So what is important is that whatever learning gaps that were there during these 2 years of duration, is important for us to cover those learning gaps and bring each and every child to a certain minimum level. So for that, we conducted for our for our grade 9 going to grade 10 and grade 8 going to grade 9. I mean, these 2 classes we conducted the foundation classes. Now, what happened in the foundation classes? It was not that we started with the curriculum or the chapters of the next class. In fact, we selected certain chapters and topics of the previous class, which were of more importance and were there to, if children they are not clear with those topics, then their base for the next class is going to be not that strong. So we pick up those topics and we conducted the foundation classes for 15 days. And these foundation classes proved to be very, very successful. And when children, they move from 9 to 10th and from 8 to 9, this transition was very, very, smooth. And children got that confidence because now they have started coming to school. So this foundation classes were a big hit in my school because they took these classes very seriously, and it actually helped them and the teachers also to cover those gaps. In these classes, there was no pressure on both the students as well as teachers to complete a portion of syllabus. Rather, the pressure was to understand the topics or the things that at this stage of life a child should know, and then moving further. So this was another initiative. And yes, one more thing that we conducted in my school was that we conducted some special PTMs. So these special PTMs were they were conducted for 2 types of learners. One, those who were scoring very less than, say 50% of scores, and one, those who scored 90% and above. scores in their final assessment or in the cumulative assessment. And then sitting with those parents, student, and the subject teachers, we could chalk out a plan for these students, not only the weak students but also for bright students, so that they can also move to a level higher. So this also helped us a lot, because at that time when the special PTMs were conducted in the school, the parent was also there, the child was there, and the teacher who was there with the child throughout. So all the stakeholders sitting together, deciding about the next course of action and the ways the school can help. So these are a few things that we this time conducted to improve the teaching learning process and to improve the understanding and the knowledge of the student towards various subjects that they have to study.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarika. Whether it was the ABC assessment of background concepts or in Charumani Ma'am's school, or it was with Sarika's foundational classes, so it was so beautiful that the effort was to bridge the gap which had emerged in the last 2.5 years. But honestly, I saw some schools, because we are targeting about 24,000 schools at one point. We keep interacting with them. And there were certain schools who were very categorical that, ma'am, exams are going on in our school, so we don't have time and space in the structure to talk to you about any other thing. Now, again, I will come back to this question that 2.5 years, the child has been, exploring and experimenting. The teachers have been experimenting. The policy makers have been experimenting about teaching learning processes, online mode, trying to create hybrid models. And now here exists a dichotomy. We are talking about a new, a paradigm shift. We are talking about that, as Charumani Ma'am right in the beginning said, that things will not be the same, and this hybrid will stay. But how much are we actually implementing it? Number one, I will come back to this discussion. But before that, we have Mr. Balamurugan, who is an expert with technology. And I want his perspective purely, sir. This is your time to speak about and give us insights on how well technology can be integrated to for the assessment purposes, because we were using technology only because we felt that, okay, a third wave is coming, a fourth wave is coming, so let's just be on the online mode and work on assessment. क्या हम वापस दोबारा से वही classroom chalk and top, would we just go back to it, or should we come up again with a hybrid assessment model as well, which should be like a white paper to all of us? If you could create and tell us something about it. Yes, Mr. Balamurugan.
Yes, ma'am. So before pandemic, we are completely on the chalk and board. Maybe we were little reluctant to use the ICT tool even for our teaching learning process. When we are reluctant to use ICT for teaching learning process, then we have to think about the assessment also. We are very poor in using technology for the assessment. So, but this pandemic, it has put us into a situation that we started using the ICT tool or the technology, not only for our teaching learning process, but also for the assessment. So initially, all the faculty were struggling a little bit to get into this ICT enabled teaching learning process and also the assessment. But within a short duration of time, because of the effort of every individual faculty, today they become expert in, they become mastery in making the ICT tool for the teaching learning process and also the assessment tool. Now they know what are the challenges they are facing through the ICT, and not only for teaching learning, but also for the assessment. And they are coming up different methodologies to make it foolproof and making the evaluation pattern very clear with the proper rubrics part. They are coming up with it. But anyhow, the conventional chalk and board teaching is having its own strength. Similarly, that this ICT online tool is also having its own strength. So naturally in the future, right, whether it is a fourth wave or fifth wave, after some time we are going to be in a normal mode. In that mode, since we have learned the online option, since we have learned the ICT option, the future is going to be only the hybrid, where we are going to merge we are going to blend the strength of conventional classroom teaching and also the ICT based teaching and assessment tool. That is what is going to happen in another 6 months or another 1 year of duration. That's how the entire education system is going to move. But when we are looking for a new assessment tool or something, whatever it is, we have to ensure that when you go for a new pedagogy or whenever you go for a new assessment tool, right? Just because of bringing new innovation on the pedagogy or for the learning, we should confirm that the student should not get overloaded because of our assessment or because of our pedagogy. The amount of workload that the student that they are going to take, it should be properly balanced. Only teaching, maybe let us not try to do the same evaluation by multiple modes. You replace one type of conceptual teaching with other pedagogy. Similarly, when you do the evaluation, you replace the existing by the other one. So we have to bring a balance between the conventional and the new thing properly in such a way that the amount of time the student that they are going to spend on the teaching, learning or the assessment should be same. That is the duty of the teacher. We have to do it. Or if we fail to do that, then we will go in a wrong direction, where the students will not be able to get the complete fruit of this blending of online and the offline. So we have, as a teacher, we have to be very careful in bringing that blend. Yes,
so, okay, let's just all, thank you so much, sir. I was hearing you out, and let's just all try and deliberate on this aspect, because number one, when you talk about the formative assessments, so use of technology and those things are quite doable. The moment we talk about a summative assessment, how would that shape up in coming times? And secondly, I remember Ms. Charumani did a beautiful workshop on technology with EduDevs. So do you think that the teacher needs to be equipped with every concept to be having a differential assessment pattern? Second, how difficult would it be for, here we are talking and deliberating, but wouldn't that increase the task of an educator manifold? So I just want to know views of everyone on this particular aspect. Formative assessments is okay. When it comes to summative, what will happen? Or summative के लिए क्या हम वही exam pattern हमें comfortable है? क्या हम उसमें कुछ और flavors, components नहीं add कर सकते? Yes, Charumani.
A very tricky question indeed, Devyani ma'am, no doubt about it.
मेरे पास लिखे बहुत different questions हैं, लेकिन I think I've chucked the questions away because this discussion is getting so, interesting and so informative that I really want that people should know. Yes, ma'am.
So here, Devyani ma'am, see, in India especially, we have a problem of plenty, I would say. So how do you filter? For filtering, you have to have an examination system that's there in place. Now, your question about how to have a summative assessment. See, recently I also figured out something which is very interesting, and my school teachers are especially using it, that we can convert a summative assessment also, which we usually consider a summative assessment, the year-end assessment, as assessment of learning. Okay, but to convert summative assessment to assessment for learning, where the child and the teacher are understanding the learning gaps. So here we started with diagnostic slips, like a doctor writes a diagnostic slip, that where you lost and all, what are the various parameters where you're not working. So we have started with these diagnostic slips where the question by question, the teacher and the taught, they work on that. The child, first of all, introspects himself, herself, that what were the learning gaps. That is one aspect, that how to convert the summative assessment to also a diagnostic kind of assessment or assessment for learning. Now coming to your another part of the question, that will summative assessment remain the way they are, that is the pen and paper test? I think that's what you meant.
Yes.
So as of now, because with the if I have to go digital, it requires a lot of paraphernalia. Schools like us, which are there in NCR, would be having it. But when we talk of a national level examination for CBSE, then we are also talking about even that school which is in the remote areas. Would they be having those digital paraphernalia to work with the summative assessment in that case? For the school-based system, yes, we can have digitized summative assessments. And as you were saying, it would be a burden on the teacher, not at all. In fact, now my teachers, they want that the other day only we had to do some survey, etc. They said, ma'am, now we can do Google. We don't have to do any pie charts and a bar graph or any percentage ourselves. The questions have to be framed in such a manner that the answers would come right away. So the teachers now have become savvy in using digital platforms in making question papers and making it in such a manner so that they can also find for themselves that what is it that they need to work on. But for class 10th, 12th, the final examinations, as we talk about CBSE or the national level, वहाँ पर थोड़ा मुश्किल है, because we have to talk about each and every school, even in the interiors where the digital disruptions haven't reached. So that's my worry. That, it won't be an easy task, and we'll have to rely on pen and paper for this.
Ma'am, we are talking about assessment, and I will not lose this opportunity to, though we are having separate robust series of webinars when we talk about CUET, but I would not want to lose this opportunity, as you were just talking about equipping the teachers and how teachers are now equipped, and they say, ma'am, we have Google and we have all these kind of, tools which we can use for assessment. Do you think for undertaking CUET, children are confused? So after a period of time, maybe next year onwards, because a good chunk of the reliance of the school would be on the board scores, but also on the CUET scores as well. So do the teachers would need any kind of special training for assessment when it comes to the CUET? And would you want your teachers to kind of be equipped during that, especially class 12 teachers, की question CUET में आ सकता है इसको ऐसे? So if you could tell us about.
True, ma'am. No doubt, anything that is coming new, we would like our teachers to learn those nuances so that they can pass on. And that's why we say teachers never grow old, because they are the actual lifelong learners. They keep learning with the new, every new batch that comes. NEP talks about creating lifelong learners. Our teachers are so. And with CUET, indeed, we would need teachers to be equipped in understanding how to frame questions. Recently, the teachers of my school, they went through a grueling session with the NAT, the the National Testing Agency, where they learned how to create, and they also created some question papers for English, economics, business studies, accountancy, physics. They have learned how to create those papers, and I understand that these kind of papers would be used for CUET. They have just learned this. The NTA has given this kind of a training to the teachers. So which is a good thing that they have done. And obviously when they have learned, they would be passing it on to the students too. And
exactly. Because yes.
Sorry, ma'am. Yes, you were. Please complete.
What I was saying was that I think the only people who are talking about CUET is coaching centers, whereas it's the teachers who need to be equipped. It's the teachers who need to be talking about. Don't you think that the coaching centers will suddenly, because I see a lot of coaching center, heads who are only talking about CUET, doing workshops on that. I really don't know. They are not in the system. I might not be. I can only be a moderator, but I'm not the right person to talk about CUET. Why? So, that wouldn't these coaching centers start capitalizing on the CUET, which is really going to give them a big chunk of, revenue. So,
Yes.
don't the schools need to check this trend?
You're right, ma'am. In fact, that is one question that we have been talking about in our faculty meets with our teachers also. Yes. I'm not afraid of saying it in open that yes, that is worrisome for our schools too. But the thing is that if I empower my teachers in making these kind of question papers, in talking to the students, if my teachers are not understanding what kind of questions are coming, if they say बच्चे मुझे मालूम नहीं है, वहां से उस कोचिंग सेंटर से पता कर लो, अगर टीचर ने एक बार ये इस साल बोल दिया, then it will become कि हमारे टीचर्स को नहीं आता है, now we have to rely on the coaching centers. So what I have started is that immediately I started taking up collecting with the teachers that you come up and take a session with our own faculty meeting in the departmental meets, that what you know about CUET, one thing. Second, sending them for NTA. As soon as I know that NTA is giving any such coaching, so I enroll my teachers for that. And third thing, that the school system is here to stay, ma'am, because the school system gives them the base. One is what will coaching center do? They'll do a plug and chug method. They give you a formula, plug into that and put the values and chug out the result. But that doesn't make the base. The base of a student is made at a school, and for that my team has to be robust, and I as the school leader has to tell them, yes, you are there, you know it all, and be confident in talking to the students and parents when it comes to CUET. So that is...
I think very, very boldly said, and I completely resonate with your thoughts, because I am part of certain groups where I see certain coaching heads. They are approaching teachers to form question papers, and I really object to that it's the teachers. We need to arrest this trend right now, because otherwise teachers will also become, scapegoats for providing those, because it's at the end of the day, it's the teacher in the classroom. And I think with this discussion, I'm seeing a lot of hands being raised. We shall come back to you. Please hold your questions to yourselves. And moving on to Ms. Sarika and Balamuruganji. Now, thank you so much, Aru ma'am, for such a bold answer. Measuring learning is the very vital for a teacher, because that's how we see that where the child has reached when we talk about his attainment or outcome of understanding of the knowledge. There is a strong need for an analytics-based assessment for students, along with human touch and intuitions of the teachers. In the past 2-3 years, technology proved to be of utmost importance, we saw. Now, Balamuruganji, how can technology aid in the holistic assessment of students, which is not just on the scores? So, because here NEP says creating a holistic report card, which few minutes back Sarika ma'am also spoke about. And we also know that technology will be the enabler. So how do you think a holistic report card or a holistic assessment can be prepared through technology?
Yes, ma'am. So when you go for the assessment, right, though it is a technology, right, the technology itself doesn't know how to do the evaluation. So as a faculty, we should make the technology in such a way that we have to make it to support us or help us in completing that particular process in a limited time duration. That's how we have to see the technology. So when we create the rubrics for that assessment should not be done only on the cognitive domain. As you have stated, it's not just only for the cognitive, and we should also make another axis which should be on the psychomotor, and there should be another axis that should be on the at the attitude level. So we have to make all the three axes, that is cognitive, psychomotor, and attitude level. What are the rubrics which has to be followed for each of these directions, and how much weightage has to be given for these things, and what is the tool or what is the methodology by which we are going to test each of these components into a particular subject. That is what is the major challenge. That's what the faculty should do. That is what the teacher should do. Once if that rubric is ready, then making the technology to use those rubrics, it's a very simple process. Yes, ma'am.
Very well. So that means a lot of importance has to be placed on preparing the parameters in the form of rubrics. That's right. What you are trying to say. So I think the coming summer vacation workshops should be on, a tip to all the edu leaders should be on how to prepare the rubrics which can be integrated with the technologies. Sarika ma'am, you were talking about parent involvement, that you were involving parents when it comes to assessment. Could we understand how can parents be integrated to, is it just making them understand what will be the newer ways of assessment, or is it integrating them, making them part of that process? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Devyani ma'am. So parents are a very important stakeholder, and they play a very important role in the child's education journey. So without taking them along, without taking them into confidence, without their support, conducting any kind of assessment, whether it is technology-based assessment or it is, school-based assessment, it is not going to work without their involvement, without their, understanding of all these things. So it is very, very important for every school. It's not that only the private school. It is for all schools that they have to take parents, inform parents about each and everything about the new changes, not only in terms of the changes in their own school system, but also the changes globally. So it is very, very important that parents, they are, time and again, the schools should hold some orientations and some kind of sessions with the parent, so that parent is also at the same page. Then only all the three stakeholders, student, teacher, school, everyone together can work for the betterment of, educational system. And as sir said that, technology can prove to be a very, very helpful, and the tools which are available are very good. So without taking parents into confidence, because if we are using technology, the parents should also agree to it, should also understand that with using this kind of tools, what kind of results, what kind of indicators or things that are going to come when the year-end assessment will happen, or anytime whenever assessment will happen, using the technology as tool. Because parents are also sometimes, they want that conventional method of assessment to be more, accurate. Sometimes they say they are more accurate, sometimes they say they are more precise. So assessment, if we want to shift the assessments from the regular or the conventional way to the technology-driven assessment, we have to take parents also into confidence. They should also be aware of the nitty-gritties and everything related to these kind of assessment. Also, it is technology alone cannot represent a kind of a silver bullet solution for improving students' outcomes. Rather, technology can open new avenues for student exploration in and outside the classroom. So in this way, technology empowers teachers to design new personalized experiences, and the knowledge or the things which are outside the scope of simply preparing student for an year-end assessment. So it is very, very important that, every stakeholder, student, parent, teacher, everyone is aware of that what kind of technology and how we are going to implement it in our school system.
Right. Very enriching insights, very enriching that each and every stakeholders has to be an integral part of not just the teaching learning, but also assessment. Ms. Charumani, can you throw also some light, because how have you been integrating parents' voices, I would say, definitely, I don't know how early it is to integrate parents into the process of assessment, but yes, integrating their voices, their opinions, and making them, satisfying their fears and apprehensions. Yes.
Very nicely put, Sarika. And now when we talk about assessment and involving parents, when we talk of 360-degree report card, 360-degree assessment, what is it? It means that we are involving all the stakeholders in the growth of the child, in the development of the child. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Okay. Right. So, and when we say that, that means all the stakeholders are equally responsible. The society, the kind of system that we have, everything, and how we are involving our parents in that, because we have understood very well that a school in which the parent and the school are hand in glove with each other they will perform, and the students will have more faith in themselves, because education is actually creating lifelong learners who have faith in themselves, rather than just with rote learning the concepts and formulas of mathematics or chemistry, isn't it? So involving parents is important, and here having like we have my reflections from the students. The student himself is also doing a reflection. Similarly, parents' reflection, where the parent says that I feel that my child lacks here or needs more attention here. Then PTMs is another thing, giving them Google Forms where the parent doesn't want to share openly that what the child lacks in. So, so that whatever the parent is saying comes directly only to the class teacher or the supervisory head. So that is what we are doing.
Very well said. I think NEP has given us a very broad and robust roadmap, and it remains on us as schools, as educators, as parents to explore and create our own recipes to, create such innovative, not just teaching, learning processes, but also assessments as well. We have with us, I think, and I really want Miss Mini Kashyap. She's been raising her hand for a long time, and I think we are moving towards the end of our discussion. We would like, would you like to ask our panelists, and you have to tell us which panelist, and you're free to ask the question from them. Yes, Miss Mini. Please unmute Ms. Kashyap. Mitali, if you could unmute our viewer who wants to ask a question, please. She has raised her hands.
Yeah, sure.
She's unmuted now.
Yes, you may ask.
Yes, ma'am, she's unmuted, ma'am.
She has muted. So I'll just read what she has written in the chat box. She say, in a comment, maybe she's not able to speak. There's some error in her microphone.
Okay.
So she's writing, we are the teachers, so we know everything related to the subject. So I do not know the context. When she wrote this, I was talking about NTA and teachers working on.
Ma'am, she wrote it when you were sharing your school's teachers. They got this opportunity to join some workshop there. So that in that context, when you were explaining, she wrote this.
Had popped up. So
Yes.
I think that's what she means. So one thing I would like to say, I do not know, ma'am, Mini Kashyap, that first thing that
Yes, hello. Hello.
to know that we do not know everything related to the subject. We are not know all and do all. We have to be a lifelong learner. And even if I am, let's say, Sarika, by chance, Sarika and myself both are chemistry teachers from there.
Hello.
So with chemistry also, there are so many changes that keep on happening in the world of chemistry. So bringing those things to the students and the newer methods, newer techniques, and how to use digital ways of bringing chemistry, the 3D models that we used to do, isn't it, Sarika ma'am? That using those apps, all that is a learning. So I won't say that we know everything related to the subject, but yes, we know that how to give the basic knowledge of the subject to the students. That's my submission.
Absolutely. Charu ma'am, I would like to add one more thing here, that if I am a senior secondary school teacher, I might be aware of what all things which are related to my subject. But for a child, if I'm a class teacher, it's not only that I can talk about only my subject. I should know a little bit about in general also. If the child is inquiring about what exactly it is, he or she wants to understand the pattern or having certain general doubts, then as a senior school teacher, I should be aware of, so awareness, understanding of everything in totality. And yes, expert knowledge and expertise of our subject will definitely be required. But only confining your knowledge to your subject is something that, we have to grow up a little. We have to, improve on our understanding for everything in general, because this is a new thing. Even the coaching center, whatever they are doing, see, the information which is there, it is there for everyone. But coaching center people, they are analyzing this information which is available, and they're interpreting it in their own way. So when they're interpreting in their own way, it is sometimes that interpretation could be correct, and sometimes it may be a little, wrong also, because there is no such explanation is given by the concerning authorities. It is the interpretation of their own that they are making. So the clarity of which will definitely come to when the first examination will happen, and we'll see the pattern, we'll see the question paper, we'll see everything. Then only everyone can talk about with so much of clarity. But yes, the coaching center, as rightly said by anyone, they are since beginning only they are talking about so confidently, for which the clarity is not given from the organizational level, the authorities who are actually conducting this. So yes, we have to make our children understand that, whatever information, see, it is the hot selling cake. Everyone is trying to, to try their hand and to get benefit out of it. So we have to make our children, wise enough, give them the right kind of advice that, listen, सबकी बातें सुनना बहुत जरूरी है, लेकिन अपना खुद का wisdom, अपने teachers, अपना school, उनके ऊपर trust करना is more important, because they are your best well-wishers.
Very good. Very well said, Sarika ma'am. Miss Ranu Rajput from Allen House Public School, Jhansi. She's written, I want to ask a question. Yes, Miss Ranu. Miss
Yes, I'm Ranu Rajput, Mr. Ranu Rajput.
Yes, Mr. Ranu. I'm so sorry. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes.
Whom do you want to ask?
It's okay.
Whom do you want to ask?
Ma'am, my question is मीन्स अभी बहुत सारे लोगों ने, मतलब किसी ने ये बोला है कि जो स्कूल टीचर होते हैं कि उनको बहुत सारी नॉलेज नहीं रहती है. बट मैम एक्चुअली में प्रॉब्लम इज दैट कि वी नो एवरीथिंग रिलेटेड टू सब्जेक्ट, बट सम इंफॉर्मेशन मिस्ड बाय द CBSE, है ना. ये समटाइम आई थिंक आज सपोज उन्होंने कुछ इंस्ट्रक्शन दिए हुए हैं और उसके बाद 2 दिन बाद वो चेंज हो गए. तो ये मैम थोड़ा सा अगर स्कूल लेवल पे हो जाए कि स्कूल की वेबसाइट पे तुरंत अपडेट हो जाए, तो मतलब वी नो एवरीथिंग.
You will get to know everything. You mean to say you will get to know everything? जी बिल्कुल. That's
yes,
right. Thank,
है ना। तो
thank
हम
you
लोग
so
जो
much.
मतलब जो
We will-
10th 12th जो
किसी ने नहीं
स्टूडेंट्स
ऐसा
हैं,
बोला, हमने किसी ने नहीं बोला ऐसा कि स्कूल टीचर को कुछ नहीं आता, किसी ने नहीं बोला।
हम लोग ये कह रहे हैं,
हम तो कह रहे हैं
हम
कि
लोग ये कह
मतलब
रहे हैं कि हम
आई मीन इंफॉर्मेशन तो देखिए मिस हो ही जाती है ना। बट
नहीं,
अगर स्कूल वेबसाइट या स्कूल लेवल पे थोड़ा सा ये इंफॉर्मेशन रोटेट होती रहे तो मतलब हम लोगों को ज्यादा
Mr.
इंफॉर्मेशन
Ranu,
रहेगी।
I really beg to differ here. कि you as a informed teacher, as a empowered teacher, you have the digital platform in your hand, the CBSE button and the CBSE website, so you can, you don't have to depend upon your principal or your headmistress or your supervisory head to tell you that what is new. उल्टा आपको बताना चाहिए, then only your value in the school will increase a lot. So
yes, ma'am, yes,
very nice. और हमने किसी ने नहीं बोला कि टीचर्स को कुछ नहीं आता।
बिल्कुल। We just say that we are all lifelong learners, and that is what our robust national education policy also strives to make each one of us. Mitali, please mute the audience. Okay, now finally, one last statement from each of the panelists about assessment redesign. What is that first thing that comes to your mind, maybe in 2 sentences? Yes, Balamurugan ji, let's start with men first today. Yes.
We have to completely redefine our assessment policy, because we need to see this reform is required, because the way how we are doing the assessment, it's a very old technique, or maybe the same technique we are following it for more than 60-70 years. So since the technology has developed, since we are into the online mode, it's the correct time to completely revamp our assessment tool, and the proper training mechanism has to be given to the faculty, how the tools can be used in redefining the assessment tool. So that's why AICTE, they started giving training to all the faculty, how the reforms can be brought in the assessment tool. They are approaching every faculty and they are trying to give a training. Instead of the conventional examination system, we are looking for the assessment in terms of activity-based, in terms of project-based, in terms of societal contribution can also be evaluated. And even it can be a group activity-based. So as a teacher, one point I completely agree that the faculty, when they have a deeper knowledge on a particular course, on a particular subject, they are the right people to explore what are the different methodologies can be adapted into their course for a new type of assessment tool. So that's why it will be very much helpful. But one just point I just added that when you go deeper and deeper and deeper into your specific course, you will understand that there is a natural connection is happening with the other courses also. Right? When I start doing research in my power systems, I felt that I should have studied the mathematics in a better way. If I would have done the mathematics in a better way during my undergraduate, I would have completed my PhD 1 year ahead. So there is
Thank you so much
across the courses, and we should understand it, and we have to make the students to realize it.
Very good. Thank you so much. So domain knowledge, understanding of the subject becomes very important for you to be an informed educator. That is what Mr. Balamurugan says. Moving on to one last statement by Ms. Charumani. Yes, ma'am.
The assessment, I would say, as a 360-degree assessment, where all the stakeholders are involved. The child is being made ready to be a lifelong learner, not just by rote memorizing, learning, and writing the paper. Because we have to prepare a child for the VUCA world, the world which is so volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. So that kind of assessment we are looking at, and that comes when we are taking assessment for and as learning, and not assessment of learning.
Thank you so much. As Ms. Charumani says, to prepare the students for the VUCA world, we need to have a 360-degree pattern of assessment where we integrate all the stakeholders. Thank you so much. Moving on to Ms. Sarika. Yes, ma'am. What is your last one statement?
Yes. So ma'am, whatever we do in school, anything that happens in school, in the education world, the child is always at the epicenter. Whatever we plan in school, it is always for the betterment of our students. So how can we have an assessment system which is not apt for checking their understanding, their knowledge, understanding their skills? So it is the need of the hour that we should have more robust ways to assess the students' learning. Instead of that rote learning or such thing, we should focus on concepts, skills, and abilities that students need to master in order to be successful when they start their career. So it is very, very important that we provide our students such like opportunities where their talents, their skill set, they hone upon on these things rather than just memorizing the things which are there in book. Eventually, if they will continue to work like that, rote memorization will be the only way of learning, then they will not be successful, because the world is ever changing. It is changing radically. So we also have to change our assessment system to be able to make a pace with that. So yes, there is a need of change in the paradigm shift in the assessment.
Yes, thank you so much. Ms. Sarika says, considering that the child is at the center, at the epicenter, we need to look at it and hone all the skills, concepts, and abilities. And I can see Mr. Bala Murugan raise his hand. Yes, sir. All ears to you. Bataye.
I just want to add a small comment on this assessment. This is I completely agree that students are the core center of this teaching process. But when you just go look into a long run of the system, right? The teaching learning process, it's the core center, and the beneficiary are the students. So when we look into the teaching learning process, it needs assessment. That assessment, multiple stakeholders, students are one of the stakeholders, parents are the stakeholders. If your student is going to do an higher study in a college, that college is also a stakeholder. So the assessment has to be carried on the student at the direct level. At the indirect level, it has to be done at the parent, at the people who are going to receive your student. And even as a faculty, you should also give some assessment. So the teaching learning process should look into the direct feedback that is given by the student and the indirect assessment given by all the stakeholders. Looking into all these factors, the teaching learning process should correct itself, should upgrade itself on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you so much. And this actually, that is what is the purpose of these deliberations that we talk about. We have always been saying, that yes, which we do believe and which is true, that student is at the center of teaching learning process. But today, Mr. Bala Murugan says that students should also be seen as one of the stakeholders, and it is the teaching learning process which is at the center, which needs the constant assessment. Thank you so much. This was such an interesting session with so much of insights from our esteemed panelists. And we would request you to, all of you, to stay tuned to our web series, next 5 to 7 episodes, where we will only be bringing people from various schools to deliberate upon the various aspects of CUET. And as I come to the end of this session, my last statement would be that today we have actually dissected the assessment changes we would need to introduce in alignment with the national education policy, and with a full circle view of introduction of technology, skill, and personality-based assessment in the classroom. I thank our entire panel for their constructive and wise discussion. With yet another academic year coming to a close, the aim should be of constant change through the progressing years. It is high time for change in order to create future world leaders and citizens who are apt at handling positions and look forward to self-development as a life goal and not just adhere to marks, which is just a number. So never stop learning. This is something which is to all the viewers, because life never stops teaching us. Thank you so much for joining in our episodes of futuristic education. And this time the topic was re-examining assessment. I think we will have to do 2 more episodes of this because so much is left. And stay tuned to our next 5 episodes on CUET. Let's talk CUET. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarika ma'am, Balamurugan ji, and Charumani ma'am. I know you all are so busy and you took the time out. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.